But yeah, that was Clinton. He finished all of it.
Morning everyone, it is the morning after the event before. Oh god, I feel so rough. Pains everywhere, aches everywhere. Somehow managed to get a cold or something like that, hay fever. But anyway, let's get into the race and everything that happened on the day. So overall the actual day went pretty well, though it was incredibly painful. But managed to not drown on the swim, not crash on the bike, and not pass out on the run. So I guess in terms of all three aspects, everything sort of went to, well, didn't go to plan, but we survived. So Georgie and I actually started the day on the Sunday getting up around, I think it was about 4:30 in the morning. The transition and registration and stuff opened at 5:30, so we then left the hotel about 5:30. It was about 10 minutes away. So I've got all that sorted, faffing around in the car. God, you'd think after this, I mean, this must be like our 15th triathlon, would have worked out everything that we do, but we ended up faffing around with our bikes at the car, and then when we got to the registration queue, there was, well, it was massive. But yeah, we got through all that in the end. It did mean that there wasn't much time in transition or any time to do a little warm-up, just in my trainers, because I haven't worn it for a while. But one good thing was though that they did let you do a swim warm-up. So I think almost everybody looked like just went into the sea, well not the sea, went into the reservoir for about 10 minutes. Had a little splash about. I'm sure they said somewhere that the water was crystal clear, but it was some of the muddiest water I've ever been in. But I guess people treading on the bottom, kicking it all up, it does do that. Yeah, so there was about 10-minute swim warm-up. And then we all got out onto the sidelines. And then it was time to start the race. Okay, so let's break this down into the three different disciplines and then transitions in between. Okay, so the swim, once we'd done the sort of little warm-up, 10 minutes in the reservoir, we all waited on the grass to the side. It was self-seeding at the start. And I decided intentionally and purposefully to seed myself higher than any time I will probably ever swim. The reason for this is I was hoping that people would sort of pull me along and drag me along in their wake. Now, I don't know if that makes me a bit of a knobhead, but if it does, it does. Anyway, yeah, so overall the swim was actually okay. The only negatives were that my goggles leaked a lot. I think in the first lap alone, I must have stopped half a dozen times to try and sort them out. It also meant that obviously when it was only the left goggle that was doing it, I couldn't breathe on that side because you just end up washing a load of water over your eyeball. It was okay breathing on the right, but also bilaterally breathing was a bit difficult. So that was the only major issue. As I've said before, it was an Australian style exit. Hello. Which meant that you come out onto the beach and then run round for the second lap. Now, I thought I'd be clever here, and I saw people as I was getting towards the end of the first lap just sort of walking across the beach, the sand. I thought, what the hell are they doing that for? So when I got out, I decided to sprint like mad, to the point where I even accidentally barged into someone and had to apologise. So I sprinted across the sand and then dived back in like an idiot, sort of not realising that this was going to massively raise my heart rate, and then as soon as I got in the water I couldn't breathe. So I had to breaststroke for about 50, maybe 100 metres, whilst my heart rate went down a bit, and then I got back into it. I also noticed as well during the swim that my stomach felt really rough. I don't really know what was causing that, but I don't know, I've not had that before. I just sort of felt a bit sick the whole time during the swim. Yeah, anyway, then we started to get towards the end. And then I guess the positive of the swim is that it was, in terms of pace, it was actually one of my fastest paces for the swim. That's not including or not accounting for the fact that it's actually come up quite short. On my Strava, it's come up as around 1,700 metres. I think Georgie's came up as around 1,750. So I swam it in 38 minutes and 7 seconds, which is a massive PB for me of about 5 minutes. So either I've got a lot better or it was short. If I extrapolate my pace for a 1900 metre swim, that would be exactly 43 minutes, which I still think would have been a PB. So overall the pace was good. Lessons learned from that are that I need to try and find a way of stopping my goggles from leaking. In terms of my position overall, that put me in 166th, and I was in the top 72% of the field, or the bottom 28, which is the way I prefer to look at it. Overall, there were actually about 230 people doing it, so yeah, 166th is not good, but the swim is the weakest part of my my triathlon. Okay, so now we're into T1. There are no issues here. The wetsuit came off fine. Chatted to some people in the thing about how short the swim seemed to come up. And then we're out onto the bike. So my T1 time was 3 minutes and 1 second, which I'm okay with. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so onto the bike, and like I said before, in the swim and the transition, my stomach was feeling really dodgy. I was feeling quite sick, quite ill. Actually, I don't know what happened. I don't know whether it was the breakfast that I'd had beforehand, because we were staying in a hotel and couldn't. Normally, I'd just have some porridge and a protein shake and a banana or something, but this time I'd had a few of those sort of flapjack bites that you get, and then a couple of rice cakes, salty rice cakes. I thought, well, with the heat and humidity of the day, I'll try and get some salt on early doors. Then had a banana and a gel, and I also probably had about 10 espressos worth of caffeine, which probably didn't help. But I don't know whether the combo of all that just really unsettled my stomach. I was feeling really rough. I actually felt rough for the entire event, which is why I don't really, overall, although it went well, I didn't particularly enjoy a lot of it. Okay, so then we pushed on the bike. I was switching between drinking my bottles every 10 minutes and then eating a Cliff Block, one of the little Cliff Blocks, every 30 minutes. So my bottles consisted of 4 gels, 3 just normal cyst gels, and then 1 was an electrolyte cyst gel. You do have to shake them quite a bit to mix it up, because you can actually see that a lot of it just settles at the bottom. There was also Lucozade in there, so it was 4 gels and a Lucozade. I was kind of hoping that my stomach was going to settle once I got into a rhythm on the bike, but it just didn't. I was literally I had quite a lot of stomach pain for the entire thing. Also, once again, another negative of the bike was that I didn't get anywhere near finishing my 2 bottles. I finished 1 and then sort of got maybe a quarter of the way down the other, which isn't good because it was around 17 degrees, but I checked Strava afterwards, the humidity was 98%. So I should have been drinking quite a lot, and I wasn't, which isn't good. Overall, I actually found the bike course quite tough. It was very undulating. There weren't really any major climbs or anything like that. There was a couple of little sort of leg snappers. But yeah, it was just constantly up and down. There was a few nice descents as well, and there were some stretches where, with a slight gradient down, you were doing 40, 50k for quite a while. So that was good. I did struggle to get to my target power that I wanted to hit. I wanted to normalise around sort of 230, 235 watts, which is what I'd managed at Cotswold 113, but I didn't get anywhere near that. I also think that tactically I got the course wrong. Like I say, because it was very undulating, there weren't really any major hills, but for the first half of the bike, I didn't really attack any of the hills and try and get them over with as quickly as possible, which I did do on the second half. And it was only really when I started to do that on the second half that I got away from the sort of group of people that I was around. Yeah, so there was a few little short, sharp snaps at the end, and I sort of went really hard up them, but it was only then I gapped these people. I think if I'd done that for the first half, maybe my normalised power would have been where I expected, and maybe there would have been a few minutes off the time. But also worth noting as well that me and Georgie did start the event at the same time, so we jumped into the water together, and it wasn't until 80 kilometres into the bike ride that I actually caught her and passed her. So that shows just how strong she is now on the bike, especially with the aero bars. So she's got really fast at that. Positives on the bike were that there was no punctures or mechanicals at any point. Also interestingly as well, this is probably the first triathlon I've done, so especially long distance one, or mid distance, 70.3 distance. But I never saw anyone on the side of the road with any kind of issue, punctures or mechanical. So that was really good. There may have been people that did, and I just didn't see them. But there was also quite a lot of support as well along the way, which was really good. People with the cowbells out, all that sort of stuff, lining the hills. And the road condition was actually probably the best I've ridden on in any event. There was no stretch of road for even 100 metres that was bad. And there was quite a few bits as well where it was really nice tarmac. So, and also the biggest positive of the bike split was that about a month or so ago, I decided to try and get more air on the bike. So I just slammed my stem all the way down. So I've got a massive chimney stack on the top now. So yeah, slam the stem, try and get more aero, and it does seem as though I've got almost to a similar pace or average speed as the Cotswold 113, which is my bike PB, with a lot less power required and hopefully a lot less effort. So for the Cotswold 113, I averaged 35 kilometers an hour, but that required 228 average watts and 234 normalised. It was quite a flat course that. But yesterday at the Grafman, I managed 34.3 kilometers an hour, but my average was only 202 watts and my normalised was 215. So I think that shows for a lot less effort. I got to a very similar pace. So I think that just means that my position is now a lot more aero. Although it was a lot more painful to hold the position, I think it's worth it in the long run. I think I will get used to it overall as I do it more. I'll hold that position for longer. So that's the main positive I took from the bike leg. So time and position for the bike was, I did 2 hours 40 and 29 seconds for the bike, 202 watt average, 215 watt normalised power. That was the 63rd fastest out of the 230 people, and that put me in the top 27%. So like I say, the swim, I was in the bottom 28. I've now moved up to the top 27% in terms of the bike. So now we head into T2. No issues here. Everything flew off straight into the vapor flies and then out onto the run. That was done in 1 minute 17. So I was pretty happy with that. So again, the biggest negative of the day was my stomach was just in pieces from all the crap it was trying to digest, not only from the terrible breakfast that I'd had, but now probably like 6, 7 cyst gels and 4 or 5 Cliff Blocks that I'd eaten on the bike. It was also at this point as well when I started to notice my shoulders and neck were really hurting from my aero position. But like I say, I think the pain across the shoulders and neck is worth it for the less effort that I then have to put in to go faster on the bike. Now, I was also hoping as well going into the run that I'd find the first 5k sort of pretty comfortable, just because it was a change of scenery. You start to use different muscles and stuff like that. But within the first few 100 metres, I knew the run course and the 21k, the half marathon was going to be so painful. And that was from the minute that I left transition. One thing I did note though, normally my lower back hurts on a lot of these runs off the bike, and it's that which tends to slow me down. But I don't know whether I just had so much pain everywhere else that I didn't notice my lower back, but I really didn't notice that this time. So whether I've transferred the lower back pain to my neck and shoulders with my new aero position, I don't know, but so that was okay. Also, wearing my Vaporflies, I put on one of those drawstring like quick release things rather than tying the laces. This meant that it wasn't very tight around the actual ankle, and the start of the run was very, well, technical, but it was a lot of sharp turns. I think there must have been about 15 really sharp turns, like hairpins, before you got out onto the reservoir, which was in the tarmac straight out and back. And it felt like they were going to come off at any moment. So that wasn't really very good. Okay, so the first 5k I managed 4:11 a kilometre. So I was on sub 21 pace, which was obviously really good. But I knew that was the fastest part of the course, and then as we started to head into the trees and the more undulating part of the route, it's very up and down. The second part of the out and back, so half of it's flat, half of it's not. So then that started to drift my pace up towards the sort of 4:30 kilometre. I ended up running the first half in 44 minutes, and bear in mind my only goal for today was to run a sub 90, so I needed to run, I guess, 2 halves of sub 45. So I'd done the first half at 44, so that was good. But I knew I was really starting to suffer now, and I knew the second half was not going to be as fast. And I was genuinely worried that I was going to run over, say, 46 and not make the sub 90. So going into the second half, I lapped my watch, which unfortunately in the multi-sport mode means it stops the watch. I didn't realise for about a minute or so. So then looking down to see what pace I was doing, I noticed it stopped, so I had to start it again. And my first kilometre, which is actually the kilometre that's the fastest part of the course, was my slowest. So things didn't bode well for the rest of the race. But sort of around the first turnaround point, which would have been sort of around 12, 13k in. So this was running back up the reservoir. I don't know what happened, but just mentally I sort of started to really focus and managed to really bring the pace up. So then rather than running any more 4:30s, I was sort of going sub 4:20s for that second part. And then we were back up into the trees and the hilly part again. I knew my pace was going to drift towards the 4:30 marker, just because the course there was very up and down. So I started to see, I think I was averaging for the second half around 4:25, and I think I did hit 4:26. But I did know that the final kilometre was basically all downhill, and I was just basically going to sprint that. So I managed to get back to that point there, and I think I did hit 4:27 a kilometre for the average in the second half, and I just needed to be under 4:30. And then that final kilometre, I think the final 2.5k, I actually averaged around 4:10 a kilometre. I was desperate to get it over with, and I knew the final kilometre was all downhill, like I say, so I sprinted down the end. I actually became a bit of a dickhead at the end because there were people still on their first loop who were obviously going slower, and then I was passing people on the second loop who were also close to finish. I was shouting at a lot of people. I was on the left, on the right, or move, or anything like that, because there was also a lot of pedestrians around. There was a lot of, because it's just a country park, there were people on segways, there was groups of cyclists, there was hikers, just people out for trail runs or whatever. I was being a right knob. I was shouting at everyone to get out of the way, because I knew I was going to be so desperately close to either not making it or making the sub 90. And then even when I got to the last, say, 100, 150 metres, there's a marshal that directs you either to laps or to the finish line, and I screamed at him like, "Finish line, where's the finish line?" And he directed me up the chute, and then I just sprinted to the finish. And I mean, I wanted to collapse over the finish line, but I was so scared of just cramping up completely and not being able to get up again that I stayed standing. So I recovered a bit, just got the medal, got some water, had some Haribo, waited a few minutes, my heart rate just come down, and then walked sort of back towards the final sort of finisher, final 100 metres, the finisher chute, and waited for Georgie to come through. And then so cheered her on over the line, and then met up with her at the end. So I actually crossed the finish line not knowing if I'd broken the sub 90 because of my watch stopping when I lapped it. I didn't actually know whether I'd done it, and I think the second half of my run was in the 45, so I'd done the first half in 44 minutes, but I don't know what the seconds were. It could have been 44:59 and then the second in 45. Because I'd paused it, I didn't know how much time I'd lost there. So it was only actually at the end that I knew. I checked the times at the end, so my run was 1 hour 29 and 25 seconds, so hit the goal, hit the aim for the day. It was the 14th fastest overall, and it was actually the fastest in my age group. So that was brilliant, really. I was really happy with that. And it was put me in the top 6% for the run. So then overall, that meant that of the 230 people who finished the event, I finished 49th, putting me in the top 21%. With a time of 4 hours 52 and 21, which is technically a PB because the Cotswold 113 had neutralised transitions, and if I were to put in sort of average transition times onto that, it would have been slightly slower than today. So, and this was a much tougher course. The bike was a lot tougher. It was probably 3 or 4 times the amount of elevation, and the run was also a lot more climbing in it. So I was 8th in my age group, and I had the 14th fastest run, and I had the fastest run in my age group. So yeah, I was pretty happy with that overall. I mean, I obviously wasn't happy after the event or during the event. I felt like crap the whole way through. But for Georgie, she finished in 5 hours, 4 minutes and 39, which is an absolutely amazing time. I think she's going to go sub 5 in the next one. And she was the 6th female overall. Which is brilliant. I think there was about 50 ladies doing it, so that's brilliant. So overall positives from the day, it looks like my swim's got slightly better, even if you take into account that the course seems to have come up short. If you take my pace, extrapolate it over a longer course, that would have been a PB for me. My bike position is definitely more aero, so hopefully as I get used to that, and if I were to hold better power, I'd be going even faster, and it looks like I can now run a sub 90 off the bike, and that's off a bike that was actually quite tough, and a run that wasn't actually that bad, but it wasn't flat. So yeah. Lessons learned as well. I really need to sort out my nutrition both pre and during the race, especially on the bike, because I really do not want to feel the sort of, I don't want to have the stomach issues that I had again. That really did slow me down on the run, and I think it also affected my bike. I don't know if that's the same for everyone, but maybe everyone's just in pain the whole time. But another lesson learned is to try and be more tactical on the bike, to attack. If I see a short hill coming up, to attack it, get it over with as quickly as possible, recover on the descent on the other side or the flat bit. And yeah, so overall, the event is actually brilliant. I highly recommend it. The swim's fun. The bike course is really nice, but a little bit challenging, but the roads are perfect, the conditions. It's a really nice scenic route. And the run course is like a mix of 2 halves. You've got one bit that's completely flat along the reservoir, and one bit that's up in the trees. Great support along the event. It was put on by Active Training World this time. I think they did a brilliant job. We do a lot of their events, so. Up next is going to be sort of a recovery week. I might chuck in a couple of tough sessions, but we have the Nottingham Outlaw Half in a couple of weeks, so going to be interesting to see how that one goes. Hopefully, if I can nail the nutrition, then it'll be a much better day. So both me and Georgie are doing that. So yeah, hopefully we'll be in a better position, stronger position, and hopefully do well there as well. So. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you haven't watched the actual race week leading into it, I'll link to that somewhere, because that'll be coming out before this one, so that should be up. That just covers my training going into this week, and then some of the race day and pre-race day footage. So if you've liked this video, smash that like button. And if you want to see more going into Outlaw Nottingham, I've got Stafford and Weymouth as well. Click subscribe, and I guess you'll be notified when they come up. So thanks for watching, everyone. See you in the next one. Bye.